Hi, today I'm going to be talking about metaphors. Now, I really like metaphors. Our minds deal really well with metaphors. You may find that sometimes you wake up after having a dream, and if you remember the dream, you can't really make much sense of it. But this is because our unconscious mind works really well with metaphors, even if we don't consciously understand what they are. And that's why metaphors can be so good. And metaphors can come in different ways. They can be just single objects that help to describe how to deal with something, such as a Rubik's Cube. If you've got a problem, a Rubik's Cube is in itself kind of a problem, a puzzle to solve. And you can't just look at one side and be able to solve it. So you have to look at it from all different angles, which is a good explanation of how you should approach a problem. There's also, I like to use a trampoline as an example of where we should put our focus. If you're on a trampoline and the only thing you focused on was how low the canvas went, how much tension were in the springs, how depressed it got, then it wouldn't be long before you'd just want to get off. You know, you wouldn't enjoy the experience very much. Whereas if you're just focusing on how high you can get, you don't even notice how low you're going, and you enjoy it all the time, even though you're only up in the air half the time. Metaphors can also come in the form of stories, which explain how to deal with a situation. Such as with the woodcutter that lived on the edge of the woods, and inside the woods were a monster. And he was very afraid of this monster, so afraid, in fact, that every time he went to open the door and he heard the monster, he just would not go out of the door, which, when you're making a living as a woodcutter, is obviously a very bad thing to do. One day his fairy godmother turned up and granted him one wish, and he wished for the monster to disappear. And she said she couldn't actually do that, but she could show him how to deal with it. And she said all he had to do was go find the monster and look it straight in the eye. I was a bit worried about this, but I thought if it's the only way that I can do it, then I'm going to have to do it. And he went on this quest. He went out, he went into the woods, and he found this monster. It was huge, absolutely huge. And at first, he wondered how he was ever going to look it in the eye. And then when it looked down at him and he made eye contact, he kept that eye contact, and he could see that the monster was actually getting smaller and smaller the more that he looked at it. And then when he got to about the same height that he was, he heard the fairy stepmother's voice saying, "Embrace it." So he put his arms around the monster and embraced it. And it got even smaller and smaller until it was right in the palm of his hand. And then he could see that it wasn't scary anymore. He was no longer afraid of it. So as long as he kept eye contact and embraced it, then the fear went away. And it's a good story to explain how to deal with fear. Now, metaphors can also be any kind of story with embedded commands that make you feel a certain way. I mean, I like to tell a story about when I used to be a painter. I used to paint cars on forecourts of car dealerships. And there was one particular day, the sun was shining, absolutely beautiful day, really warm. Birds were singing, such a relaxing day. And the car that they brought me was a sports car, one of those really vibrant coloured sports cars. And I had to mix the paint for this, and there were a lot of different colours involved in mixing this paint. And as I started pouring them into the cup and mixing this paint, some of the colours that I were adding in actually reminded me of the colour of the sky over the Pecos Mountains when I was wild camping. I crawled out of my tent one morning, it was before the sun rose, and I sat on the mountainside. It was just starting to get light. The sky behind me was still dark and you could see the stars, and it brightened up over towards the mountains in front of me. There was a cliff face behind me that led up to the peak of the mountain, and that was like a steel grey colour. The grass flowed down the hillside in front of me. There were big jagged rocks stuck through, like grey icebergs on an ocean of green. They're absolutely beautiful. The air was really still and cold. and all I could hear was deathly silence apart from cowbells in the distance. It was just absolutely beautiful, relaxing setting. And as I sat there, just breathing calmly, I started thinking about my family and my daughter, way back to when she was born. And, you know, I was there delivering her. So there when she was born, and I remembered all the changes that she'd made, you know, from crawling to taking her first steps, the first words, starting school for the first time, all these positive changes that she'd made through her life. And you can make these positive changes, all the changes you want to make your life better, to give you the freedom you want. You can make those changes now. And as I saw her face as a 7-year-old child, as she was back then, the sun started to rise over the mountaintops and everything changed. The steel grey mountain face behind me turned to a beautiful sandstone colour. All the grass brightened up. There were some horses that ran across the field at the bottom. They looked like they were totally free. I heard a dog barking that was protecting some goats on the hillside. The buzzards started flying around in the air. Even the air started to warm up. It was so beautiful and relaxing, just felt so free. And the colours in the sky were absolutely amazing. And as I mixed those colours in that cup, painted that car, and integrated all those colours together, it was absolutely magical. The colour that created was just amazing. And it was such a wonderful day at work for me. And I felt so relaxed when I got home. It was just wonderful. You see, even stories like that, metaphors for change or relaxation. That's why metaphors are such a good thing. It's just like telling stories, and people either listen to them or they don't. And let me know if you enjoyed the stories that I've told, and if you didn't, again, let me know. But that's it for this video. So until next time, have a great day. Keep being awesome.